Ms. Vassarotti.
I seek leave of the Assembly to make my inaugural speech.
Members, is leave granted? Yes. Ms. Vassarotti, you have the floor. Before I recall Ms. Vassarotti, though, I wish to remind members that it's traditional that our inaugural speeches are held in silence with a level of respect. Thank you, Ms. Vassarotti.
Thank you. As I begin my first speech as an elected member, I'd like to acknowledge that we meet on the land of the Ngunnawal people. I thank and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. As someone whose family story has intersected with local First Nations people for over a century, I recognise that sovereignty was never ceded, and this was, is and always will be Aboriginal land. I pledge to do what I can through this Assembly to engage with truth, work towards treaty and support the voices of First Nations people. Madam Speaker, it is a tremendously humbling experience to stand here as an elected member of the 10th Assembly. I thank the voters of Kurrajong who have put faith in me and the ACT Greens and have voted a second Greens representative in the electorate for the first time ever. I congratulate every other member of the Assembly for your election and sincerely look forward to the opportunity to work with you all as we work to represent the people of Canberra. I take this opportunity to share a little bit about myself and what has brought me to this moment. I'm not someone who's harboured a long-term ambition for public office and have had a range of life experiences prior to taking on this role. I'm part of that rare breed of Canberrans, although there are a few of us here, that are born and bred in Canberra. And while I was part of a generation born to parents who moved here as the public service in Canberra was expanded through the 1960s and 70s, I have deep roots to this place, with my great-grandfather part of the Keefe and Cullen families, some of the original colonial families of the region. While my Italian great-grandparents were falling in love on a boat, on a ship from northern Italy to Australia, my Irish great-grandparents were meeting on the steps of Sacred Heart Church in what is now Corwell. My childhood in Canberra was pretty standard, as part of a fairly conventional family. It was loud. As one of 6 children, there was always something happening. Throughout this time, while things were far than lavish, 6 children, 1 income and high interest rates paid to that, we were never in any doubt that we were privileged and we needed to think about how we could contribute to our community. This is the lasting legacy of my parents, who've always been incredible role models, modelling hard work, community contribution, standing up for what is right, and not shying away from leadership when it was needed. In me, they fostered a sense of social justice and a passion for getting involved to make things better for individuals and communities as a whole. It's a wonderful moment to have my dad here to share this moment, and a great sadness that my mother is no longer here to share a moment she would have loved, particularly with her passion for women's leadership. Our family will always be grateful for members of this Assembly when they paused for a moment 8 years ago to recognise her contributions to the community. It's a bit of a confession to make that while growing up, I wasn't sure that Canberra was where it was all happening. Growing up, I was often known to declare that as soon as I was able, I would be off to be part of a much bigger and more exciting world. It wasn't until much later that I realised that I was part of a generation that was growing up not just in Canberra, but with Canberra. Our experiences mirrored that of a city as it grew and developed. As I made decisions to study and my professional life, despite my early declarations, it was always this city that offered the most enriching and meaningful opportunities. And so I went off to one of our world-leading universities. I only recently discovered at the same time as both the Chief Minister and the Attorney General, but was more likely to be found with the Deputy Chief Minister as I was working to pay my way through university. So then I embarked on a career as a young graduate in the ACT public service. This was a choice made very deliberately because I knew that I was passionate about working with local communities and making a tangible difference to lives locally. And what amazing experiences that I had at this time. From being part of a team to set up a new environmental agency, leading some work around accessibility of government agencies, and being part of the bushfire recovery process following the devastating 2003 bushfires. During this time as a public service, a very special opportunity came along to get involved in a project leading the very first ACT Poverty Inquiry, a joint project between the ACT Government and ACT Council Social Service. While I'd always known that people in our local community were struggling, this was a transformational experience, as I got to sit with people as they shared their experiences about being poor in a city that did not acknowledge that there was much disadvantage at all. It also included working with service providers who were fighting to access the resources to support these people, and working with researchers who were developing methods to quantify the extent of a problem that until this point we had never named or acknowledged. I'm immensely grateful that I was able to contribute to a project that changed the face of our city's understanding of poverty and disadvantage, and whose legacy I still believe I can see today. It made me realise how the actions of a small group of people with a clear purpose, commitment to evidence, the ability to walk ethically with people who are marginalised to support them to share their experiences, could make a real difference. It was in large part due to this experience that I made the decision, seen as very unusual at the time, to pursue different opportunities outside the public service. My life was changed when a group of women running an organisation whose vision was women achieving their potential lived that value and appointed me to the role of Executive Director of YWCA of Canberra. This was an entry point to an incredible journey of almost 2 decades of working with local, national and international community sector organisations. Through working with the YWCA, but also others including the Council of Social Service Movement, homelessness and community housing organisations and health-based organisations, I've had the chance to work with the most talented, passionate and compassionate people you could ever meet, working to support people and fix the systems and structures that lead to disadvantage and marginalisation. Through this time, I've become passionate about many issues: gender equity, homelessness, social exclusion, marginalisation due to health services and sexual identity. I've worked to support people going through the most challenging of times, through work on guardianship, mental health and energy hardship tribunals. I've worked to support people who've been cut out of healthcare because of issues such as drug use, and worked to shine a light on the impacts of gambling harm that go far beyond individual responsibility and impact. I've had many people speculate what's motivated my interest in these issues, and they're often surprised that it's not because of personal experience, but because of a deep belief that we all need to take responsibility, and if we can bring our skills, experience or influence to solve a problem that is hurting people, we must. As the saying goes, we accept the standard we walk past, and I passionately believe we should never walk past our neighbour or friend when we can support them. While I've worked hard for many years to advocate for change, I decided a few years ago that it was time to get off the sidelines and get involved in political life. This decision was sparked through the experience of working with others to stop some of the worst measures of the infamous 2014 federal budget that would have seen devastating impacts on some of the most marginalised people in our Australian community. In working with political representatives who were proposing these ideas, I realised that they were not bad people, but often they were totally disconnected from the reality of most people's lives. I realised that we needed people in public life who were connected to the communities they serve and had been exposed to the diversity of people's experience, beyond the small circles that we usually travel in. Madam Speaker, after providing some perspective on what has brought me to this point today, it's important that we look forward towards the future and what we need to do in this critical time for our city's evolution. With drought, bushfires, smoke, hail, and a pandemic that has triggered a health and economic crisis, the challenges that we have faced in 2020 have been like no other. We will continue to face huge social and economic challenges in this term. We will need to bring creativity, collaboration, and an ability to do things differently if we are to rise to the challenges we face. In this most challenging of years, the recent local election has been, for many, a moment of reflection of the past and hope for the future. Regardless of which party we serve and represent, we as members all gather here because of our passion for our local community. This term of the Assembly sees more ACT Greens than ever before. As a grassroots party, we come here without the support of vested interests or corporate donations. Rather, we're here because of the collective efforts of hundreds of volunteers who believed in our plan and who have contributed their time, their talents and their passion. Thank you to everyone who's been part of our positive and constructive election campaign. The ACT Greens are here in this place to tackle the big issues and to do politics differently. We build on a strong legacy. I would particularly want to acknowledge the ACT Greens party leader, Shane Rattenbury, who has provided such ethical leadership through a number of terms in the Assembly. He is guiding and supporting us new ACT Greens members with generosity, grace and genuine care. I'd like to personally thank Shane for his friendship and leadership in setting a culture where we support each other, raise each other up and demonstrate that we are stronger together than apart. Colleagues, this term of the Assembly presents a remarkable opportunity for all of us. I know that many of you share my desire for the local community to feel more connected and part of its political life. I'm sure that I'm not alone in wanting our local community to feel included in decision-making and be confident that our political representatives are working with, for and in their best interests. We have an opportunity in this Assembly to build and enhance trust in the political process. This starts with how we do things. The makeup of this Assembly will necessitate collaboration and working in partnership. This is yet another opportunity for us to show leadership and demonstrate to other jurisdictions what constructive, collaborative politics can look like. It also clearly includes what we do. Collectively, across all of our parties, we have made significant commitments to the community. This has included continuing the leadership on tackling climate change and ensuring that our city remains livable in a changing climate. This has included protecting our precious natural environment and responding to the ecological crisis that we face, connected with a changing climate and escalated by natural disasters, including drought and bushfires. It's included us tackling our growing inequality crisis, addressing homelessness and disadvantage. To address all these crises, we need to act. We cannot rely on individual ministers or MLAs to work in silos on these issues, but we must work collectively to achieve change. We will need to work together to ensure that the community's needs are put ahead of vested interests. And we've made a great start, with a strong framework developed through the Parliamentary and Governing Agreement. And my focus over the next 4 years is to work tirelessly to do everything we can to make this city a more connected, caring and sustainable place. I have deep gratitude for the opportunities that I've been afforded to specifically shape some of the portfolios through ministerial responsibilities, and particularly wanted to acknowledge and thank the Chief Minister for providing these opportunities. I commit to giving everything to ensure these portfolios thrive. This includes ensuring that we act decisively to respond to the ecological crisis we face and ensure our biodiversity and ecosystems are protected. This includes championing and promoting businesses, building sustainability, accessibility and quality, continuing the reform work and rebuilding community confidence that the buildings that we are designing and constructing are of high quality, will be livable even if our circumstances and abilities change, are comfortable and climate resilient. This includes ensuring everyone has a decent home to live in and that our social housing system is responsive to the wide range of people it caters for. It means protecting and celebrating our history and heritage and understanding how our history and our future needs can be complementary. As I reflect on my journey and prepare for the future ahead, it's important to recognise the people who have supported me and will continue to do so. I stand on the shoulders of the giants who have had faith and belief in me, of those who have mentored and nurtured me. I won't look towards the gallery because I'll cry, but you will see a small representation of the people who have loved me, supported me, and have chosen to be part of this rather winding journey. Friends, mentors, teachers who, without their wisdom and advice, I could not have navigated the tough times and who have celebrated the great times with me. I wish to take this moment to thank my extraordinary family. Brendan, thank you for being my life partner in every sense of the word. It was more than half a lifetime ago that we came together, and it's certainly true that you did not know what you were signing up for. You are my solid, steady partner who's always believed in me, enabled me to follow my dreams, take risks, and dedicate all I could to my professional and volunteer life. And I'd also like to thank and acknowledge the three extraordinary young people who join him: Matilda, Reuben and Solomon. You are my joy, my greatest pride, and in all the craziness of life, you are what is most important to me and your dad. Madam Speaker, in concluding this speech, I'd just like to reiterate my deep gratitude for this opportunity to serve the voters of Kurrajong and Canberra more generally. I thank every person who's been part of my story today and look forward to us all working together collectively over the next 4 years to make Canberra an even more caring, connected and livable city. Thank you.
Thank you. I will call